This tutorial assumes you have Hammer++ and Hammer add-ons installed. If you do not have these two tools installed, please watch our first tutorial.
Lighting can be a very powerful tool in maps. Lighting is a very powerful tool in maps, and knowing how to light your maps well is an important skill, because lighting is the way that we see the world, and although that's not really how Source works, it means that we as humans are very good at picking up on when something does not look realistic. And for an engine or series of games like Portal, Half-Life, etc. that try to emulate reality, you want your lighting to look good, and it can contribute a lot to your atmosphere. I am going to show several tricks or pieces of knowledge that are useful to have or adopt as a mapper. And in a lot of cases, when it comes to visuals, the difference between a good map and a great map is the lighting. Now, Source's baked lighting system, although it is not modern approach per se, many games now have ray tracing, or even Source 2, it's still baked, but it is much higher resolution. Source's lighting is actually still very powerful, and you can get some very good results from it. You just have to know how to use it properly. So one of the most fundamental pieces of knowledge is the difference between different lighting attenuations. In any light, I'm just going to reset this to our default settings here. Any light, you'll see these three little lines: constant, linear, and quadratic. Those are attenuation modes for your light, which is basically the curve at which your light will fall off. So if I have it set to quadratic, this is essentially a normal light, like what a normal light would look like in real life if you just had a random point light. If I move it towards the wall, it gets brighter. And if I move it further from the wall, it gets dimmer. But this behaves sort of like a floating point light, assuming that that's physically possible. This behaves the way it would look. If you do a linear fall off instead of a quadratic one, if I set linear to 1 and quadratic to 0, you can see things get a little brighter. This is not falling off as quickly. And if I set it to constant, by setting linear to 0, if I can type, and constant to 1, now you can see it is a direct fall off. This light is either fully bright or fully dim. And I can actually take this and drag it to the wall. And it's not really doing much. I mean, you can see a little bit of sort of attenuation on the wall, but I think that's just Hammer. And it's the same light, sort of no matter what. Like, no matter where you move it, it changes a little bit, like ambient occlusion wise. But that's kind of it. Here are the different types of lighting fall-offs. So you have quadratic, which is a quadratic curve. If you've taken a basic algebra class, you should know what a quadratic curve is. These images, these examples, I took from TopHattWaffle, so credit to him. It is from his Steam article on I think it was the Big Amazing Guide to Lighting, was what it was called. This is an example of a quadratic fall-off. So it stays bright for a little bit, and then it goes and down. And that's what you see here, where it gets dark. Linear is more of a direct curve. So you can see there, it's smooth from where the point is. Versus here, it's like a curve, like that kind of curve. Constant, it is literally the same lighting across the whole thing. Unlike this, where it still somewhat falls off, but goes further than quadratic. As you can see, this is darker here, this is and this is fully bright. Because Source does not do as much sort of bouncing as there is in the real world, you can sort of fake it by using a constant light and a very low brightness, which you can do with the alpha. It is the 4th number in your light color. You can get an even wash in the whole map, or at least everywhere the light faces. So, in this whole area, you can see there, it's lit. If I hide it and full bake it, now you can't really see anything. I bring it back and full bake. Now it's back. And so when you're in the map, this gives like that subtle glow across the whole area to let the player see it even in dark areas. And then you can use tone mapping to sort of help. Knowing these attenuations, it's also important to know falloffs, which are direct values that you can input into a light to tell it at what distance it should be fully dark. And it will basically scale down that curve or that pattern, and then fade it out. So I can do 56 and 384 and set this higher. And you can see what was a constant light is now falling off. You can also set a hard fall off, so I can set that like 512. And now it does some weird stuff because it's a constant light, but you can see right there is 512. Now, if you do this with a quadratic light, it should look somewhat more natural. So you can still see some of that ambient lighting. It's being weird, and that is why your fall off should be considered, because you can get weird results like that. You can set your fall off distances to be lower, and now you don't notice it as much. It's still a quadratic light, but you don't notice the hard fall off as much. Although our 0% distance is quite close. And there, now it's less obvious if I move this over. See? And so even my little mistake there, I think, is a good example of why these fall-offs need to be set well. And that's why Hammer++'s lighting preview is very good to have, because you can see it without needing to have a sense of it, which most Valve developers did have before they had a lighting preview, but that was definitely on their agenda in Source 2, and then Fiffle added it in Hammer++, so now we can all reap the benefits. Falloffs are also useful, specifically the hard falloff value, in named lighting. So if you have... first, it's important to understand how light maps work. So you basically get an entire grid, or if you've ever seen UV unwrapping, kind of like that. The entire map is assigned little sections on a texture on which their lighting values are for each face. And that is where lighting is baked to. So if you were to see a light map, it would be a flat representation of all the lighting everywhere. And then it is sort of applied like a sticker to all your faces in the map, all your solids. And whenever you have a named light that is turning on or off, it is switching that entire texture. So VRAD is now baking 2 textures instead of 1 and switching it. And that's why if you have a named light that you're toggling, you might notice a stutter. That is because it's switching the entire lighting texture for the entire map. If you've ever seen a VRAD warning saying that you have too many named lights in an area, the reason is that it is doing the entire texture with those named lights. Using a hard fall off, so this third circle here is where a light is completely hard cut off, right? After this point, if it switches to a second like light map texture, it won't be updating the entire map. And so if you have multiple named lights in one area and then multiple in another, however the engine, handles some of that splitting up, the engine won't see the entire light in the entire map. It will be confined to this maximum distance, which is important if you want to do anything with named lighting. If you are doing some toggled dynamic lighting, though, maybe you should know about the light dynamic. Light dynamic gets a lot of hate. It is a very oppressed entity, in my opinion. But once again, it's tiny but mighty. You can do some cool stuff with it. Now, many people shy away from the light dynamic because they don't know how to use it, and it is a little finicky. Valve has used the light dynamic in an official capacity in Portal 2 in several instances. Now, I have stolen their trick, and I have actually used it in several maps of mine, including this one, High Pass. There are parameters that you can set to make the light actually work and not do weird things, which I think is the reason a lot of people kind of shy away from it. So, your alpha, you can set to like 200, 100. Your brightness, you can set that to whatever you want. Your inner and outer angles, set them both to 0. That will make this function like a point light. Now, if you want it to function like a spotlight, you can. You can just set those angles like you would with a light spot. But if you want a general glow, do it that way. Maximum distance and spotlight end radius. I always set spotlight end radius to like 128. And then your maximum distance, set it to, it's kind of like a hard fall off, but it includes your soft fall offs as well. Set that to just the general area that you want the light to show. And unless it's if it's not too small, it'll look all right. Light dynamics don't use baked light maps. I'm actually not sure on the sort of back-end engine function of them, but they do not use the baked light map. So if you want toggled lights in the sense of, laser relays or catchers here, you can actually do that with light dynamics at a low performance cost, and it'll look fine. And you, as an added benefit, will avoid the potential stutter from switching light maps completely. Now, you see how I have 4 here? If those were named lights, the engine would be freaking out, unless they had a very small hard fall off, which would not look natural. If you have your settings right, they can look all right. And I will actually compile to show you. A final thing. Light spot. You can set some parameters to give it a softer glow. This is also a trick that I originally learned from TopHattWaffle, the same tutorial. If you set your outer angle to 90, it functions kind of like an area light, and you can sort of increase the inner angle to increase that cone, the width of that cone. So if I set these both to, let's say, 40, you can see this has sort of a softness to it that this light does not have. You can use this for your light strips. You can use this for, there's actually a cut Portal 2 model that I think works somewhat well for this. Haha! There we go. Okay. This cut model that is still in Portal 2's files, actually, has kind of a soft glow to it. And if you set this color to a white, you get kind of a soft glow from it that would a point light would not fit. It's not befitting of a point light. And a spotlight would not work super well for this either. And if you set your light map scale to be higher, it's still pretty soft. Whereas if you have a sharper light here, you know, you kind of notice the edge of it. So, good trick to know if you ever want a sort of area light or like a panel light. Just set your outer fading angle to 90, and it'll give kind of a soft glow as if it's coming from an area light. Remember to like and subscribe. Ashleyanna, PMAM forever. Fiffle Fiftano signing off.